Welcome, everyone. This is the living room, a now bi-monthly session for conversation and information sharing on topics related to sustainable jewelry practices. We cover a variety of topics from practical tools that can be implemented in your jewelry practice to in-depth learning about artisanal mining. Today, we're taking a look at how we can increase benefit in communities that produce jewelry materials. As always, we'll have a blog post summary and a recording of the session on our website. I'm Ana Brazeitite, Education Director and Consultant at Christina T. Miller Sustainable Jewelry Consulting. And I'm really glad to be here with all of you, along with my teammates, Christina Miller, our founder and lead consultant, and Cecilia Echeverri, Operations and Outreach Director and Consultant. Through our educational and consulting services, we provide strategy, guidance, and education on responsible sourcing and sustainability for the jewelry industry. You can find out more at christinatmiller.com, and you can always reach out to us with any questions or suggestions, such as other topics you'd like to see covered in the living room. We want to say a big thank you to those of you who've been able to contribute to making these sessions happen through the Pay What You Want option on our website, as well as to everyone here for showing up for this conversation or listening to it down the road. Quick housekeeping, this conversation is being recorded, as we mentioned, and will be in the public realm. We encourage your participation through the chat, and we may read some of your questions or comments out loud. For the best sound quality for the recording, please make sure your microphone is on mute. And remember, this is a kind community space, so please be respectful of everyone's privacy and personal space if you're using the chat. Our next living room session will be on November 17th. Please sign up for our newsletter to receive a reminder about that, as well as the takeaways from this session. You'll find the link in the chat or in the caption below if you're watching later. Now I'll hand it over to Christina to start the conversation with our guests.
Thanks, Ana. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. It's my great pleasure that we get to host our guests today. And we wanted to bring you this topic of in-country value addition because we see it as a necessary part of your strategy in creating equitable systems in the jewelry industry that are both economically and culturally sustainable. And it means sort of also applying your enthusiasm to be a change maker and to do good in the world with the realities of what's possible in a given environment, and making sure that you really take into consideration what the people you are hoping to benefit actually need and want from your support. Because you may have one idea in mind and what's needed could look quite different. So we're going to have some practical ideas shared today. And so I would love to welcome Namwezi Nicole Batumike. She is the Gender and Responsible Sourcing Specialist at Panzi Foundation. This is an organization based in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We also have with us today Lotanna Amina Okpukpara, Principal Partner and Gemologist at Mina Stones, and also Ola Erogbogbo, co-founder of Deinté Fine Jewelry, and both Lotanna and Ola have their roots in Nigeria. So welcome. We are really looking forward to hearing from the three of you today and how you do your work, how you understand your work. And we have some questions. I'm going to lean on Ana if you would like to pose the first question. And as we go, feel free to put your questions in the chat. This today is meant to be a discussion. We don't have a formal, we're going to talk now for 20 minutes and then we have the rest of the time for Q&A. This is a conversation. So please, as things come up for you, feel free to put them in the chat. Go ahead, Ana.
Sounds great. Thanks, Christina. Yeah, let's start it off by going around and having each of you introduce us to your work. So, the nature of your business or organization, what type of jewelry practices or materials are involved, and where the work takes place. Just give us an overview and introduction. We want to get to know your work. Um, Lotanna Amina is right next to me, so I'll start with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Lotanna Amina Okpukpara. I am a gemologist and I'm an engineer. I'm, as Christina said, the principal and CEO of Mina Stones. We're based both in Nigeria and here in the US. Mina Stones is a vertically integrated social business, and we're involved in the gemstone value chain at every level. We have for over 12 years now tried to create responsible gemstones and jewelry from raw materials sourced mainly in Nigeria and some parts of Africa and beyond. At the core of what we do, we have impacting communities where our resources are mined and also processed. It's a very big integral part of our work. And I think ultimately we aim to impact as many lives as we can through the work that we do, especially in the communities where we source our raw materials from. So, I mean, we work with gemstones and jewelry, as I said. Now we're focusing more on sapphires. Right at this moment, we're focusing on sapphires and tourmalines from Nigeria. And in terms of jewelry, we have many lovely handcrafted jewelry in 18 karat gold and with gemstones, different gemstones. We're on social media, so if you need to know more about us, you can just search Mina Stones on Instagram and you can find more information. Thank you.
Thanks, Amina. Let's go to Ola next.
Sure, thank you. I'm glad to be here. My name is Ola Erogbogbo. I am presently in Chicago. I live in Chicago, but I do shuttle back and forth between Nigeria. Not as much as I would like in the last few years. But I and my mom run a fine jewelry business in Nigeria. It started off leveraging the fact that the elite in Nigeria have a high appetite for fine jewelry from outside of Nigeria. And so growing in that environment where that was a source of living for my family, to the point where I got to understanding the value that we have in Nigeria when it comes to gemstones and raw materials, and starting to weave that into the fabric of Deinté's identity, and also introducing that in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, is the stage where I'm at this point. I think that is mostly what I wanted to share about myself. I also run a nonprofit called Doing Good Work in Africa that connects students in the US mostly to African innovators in Africa, and hoping to weave that into the jewelry business also.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ola. We already have a question coming in. I can tell it's going to be a great discussion. Let's have Namwezi introduce herself first.
Hi, I am Nicole Namwezi Batumike, and I work with Panzi Foundation, which is actually both a hospital, and so Panzi is both a hospital and a foundation, and so that differentiates us a little from Amina and Ola, as the project is really being managed at the moment under the socio-economic reintegration pillar of the foundation. Panzi was created, the hospital was created in 1999 by Dr. Denis Mukwege, who is a gynecologist and human rights activist. And in 2008, we created the Panzi Foundation. And since then, we've been a center of excellence for the care, the holistic care, providing holistic care to survivors of sexual violence in Eastern DRC. We started the jewelry project in 2019 and wanted to, in a way, address that link between conflict minerals and sexual violence in Eastern DRC and reverse the negative relationship between women and the Congolese minerals. What we've been able to achieve and since the beginning of the project is the creation of the workshop where we transform stones. We facet them, polish them into beautiful gems. We've also been able to train more than 50 women in the transformation of metals. As for now, because we really want our sourcing to respect a certain set of rules that we've set for ourselves, we've been pausing with metals and we are now just focusing on gemstones. I would be happy to also explain more about the procurement situation in the DRC, but I'm sure that most of us here are quite aware of all the delicacy that's around the topic. But well, I think that was a summary of what we do.
Thank you, Namwezi. So as kind of an additional layer to why we're here as taking part in this conversation, I would love to hear from each of you, why is it important to you personally to focus on in-country value addition, and what does that mean to you?
Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Focusing on in-country value add, for me, I feel like when you're talking about development, like real development, I think comes from when there's in-country capacity. I mean, when you're able to produce and deliver what's attainable in the global market locally. For me, I want the idea of supporting ASM or artisans to kind of shift from short-term projects, one-off things that are just short-lived, to investments that will actually stand the test of time, and see that the local capacity is strong enough to sustain the efforts that are being made by some of these investments. So in summary, I think for me, it means a lot of things, but I'll focus on in-country value addition. It means some kind of liberation and freedom for many people. So, yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's powerful. Please go ahead, Ola.
Amina made. I'll come from it from just stories or experiences that I've had. I think during COVID, it was a really enlightening time for a lot of people, and seeing that that most people live day to day in terms of income, especially in the artisanal mining world in Nigeria and other parts of the world. And so, like Amina mentioned, things that are sustainable and not just projects, one-off projects, are really important. I think for me also, being in the jewelry store and selling high-end jewelry, and worth thousands of dollars, and then you walk out into the streets, and it's not the poverty, because it's poverty. You can find poverty everywhere you go. There's poverty. You can find poverty in Chicago, where I'm at presently. But for me, it's the hopelessness. People not being able to realize their full potential because they're given limited resources and limited exposure to what they can potentially do. And that is what is really motivating me to be able to create programs or processes where people can get trained, have access to resources, and fully realize their potential, and not just live day to day in terms of income or in terms of taking care of their family.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ola. You know, it immediately makes me think of the term resource curse, right? Where the resources being taken away from a place means the people there locally are not benefiting from them, of course. Namwezi, did you have something to add there on why it's important to you?
Obviously, I second what both Amina and Ola said. It's very similar in the DRC where you really lack access to opportunities that would actually put our nation at the same level. And I think that when we talk about development, if we want to talk about equality of gender, of classes, and of nations, we really have to include value addition in the mix of what we bring when we come with development projects, or even when we want to get involved with the ASM communities. I think that to also hear what their needs are and what their desires are is what is fair. I would add, when it comes to the DRC and our current situation with the war, I would add that actually having value addition and transformation in the DRC gives us a closer contact and a better control and insight over the upstream of the value chain, and in that way help us, I would say, illustrate what is needed when it comes to transparency and traceability from the perspective of a jeweler. So what we are trying to do with Panzi Foundation is basically join the community of jewelers and tell them, as we are close to those communities and we understand them, are doing it this and that way. And we hope that you, even if you are in Switzerland, even if you are in the US or wherever, will be able to copy that model and do it in a way that's as transparent, that is as equitable, as fair, and as inclusive of the communities in the DRC.
Yeah, thank you. So it's definitely a big thing to tackle. You know, with the legacy of the jewelry industry being built up on colonialism, if we're being frank. So can each of you tell us where you started with your own efforts and where you'd like to get to? Like, what do you see as, you know, what is your vision?
Okay, if I can go ahead. I think so. The vision is basically to bring value back to the source. And for me, I think establishing scalable solutions will definitely help to achieve that, to bring value to host countries and communities long term. There's an emphasis on long term here. So basic human needs are met. When I say basic, I mean food on the table, water to drink. These are met in a larger scale when there's a pathway for growth and development. So if we're trying to achieve this, there has to be, I'm trying to say many things in few words, so please just
You can also say them in more words if you'd like.
I'm
We're
just
here for
looking at the time. Okay, so there are multiple players obviously involved that will help to make all these dreams and goals that we have for the industry possible, but we are either here or we have access to them. So for me, I think increasing the income of all the players that we work with along the chain, from the mining to the processing, in such a way that it's sustainable and they're not just able to put food on their tables, but they're able to grow and develop not just themselves, but their families and eventually their communities around them. So we are looking at not just increasing what they get here and there, but saying that where they are is definitely better than where they've started, and they're also proud of the kind of work that they do. So there's a lot that goes into having this dream come to fruition, and there's work that we're doing already to see that this happens, but there needs to be more effort, more collaborative and more joint effort from different players. Like I've said, there's so many stakeholders involved, from government. We can't leave government out of these things. If you're, because for me, my success is not that Mina Stones is successful alone. My success is that we're able to actually bring this impact to these countries and these communities. And the government plays a big role in this. We can't take the government out. There's so many local actors as well, associations, groups, and private sector that involved. So we all have to do a lot more work, and not just talking, but actually doing. And so I think if we work together, continue to work, because some people, I would say some of us are doing some work, continue to network and connect, partner, collaborate, and push this thing, I think will definitely make some major difference. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I see that. It's that bigger impact doesn't happen without collaboration between jewelry industry actors, but then also, yeah, like you said, with society and government and all the pieces working together. It's a very good point. Namwezi, I see you unmuted. Do you want to tell us where you started with your own efforts and where you see things going?
Sorry, I didn't notice I did unmute, but I can go ahead. So for us, we started because so Dr. Mukwege actually wanted to start something in the gold sector initially, because women and people in the DRC in general, wedding rings it's Congolese gold, but it obviously it was never made in the DRC. So it goes out to Dubai and then goes wherever, and then it comes back to us. And then people pay a certain amount of money to not even know if it's coming from their villages, So it's, that was the initial thought, to actually work on wedding rings. And then we saw how complicated the gold sector was. But the idea, though, behind that is about regaining ownership in a way of our natural resources and gaining a better understanding of how the sector works in general, and having that access again, or offering that access to opportunities. I think those were the initial motivations behind it. Also, Dr. Mukwege has been doing advocacy around, or advocating around, the fact that this war, the economic war that is happening in the DRC, is very much linked to conflict minerals. And as you mentioned earlier, as for now, it's been more of a resource curse than something else, while it could be something completely different if we were to industrialize, if we were to create jobs with the transformation. That's one thing, but I think really that idea of also shifting people's minds and making them understand that this is theirs, and that is, when it comes to the artisanal mining communities, for them to really understand what's doable with it and what you can create out of it, what other people are actually doing. And that's obviously not to exclude anyone from the value chain, or to say that those initiatives, or that what is existing necessarily needs to stop existing. But the models needs to change, and we need to be able to, the access need to change. It shouldn't be just accessible to the West, basically. So I think I said what our initial motivations were, but also what our vision is, which is basically just something more equal for everyone. Because as I said, we don't think that we need to exclude anyone, even when we look at some of the initiatives that were started in the DRC, you can, and actually Christina Miller was involved in or with parties that worked in such initiatives, but people work with former armed groups or even people that are involved in some ways in the armed groups or the military, to actually train them to better understand different things that they could do differently in the gold sector or in the sector of the mineral that they are close to, because we want to include them in the value chain. The reason why people are actually using their weapons in the DRC, and I don't want to simplify this, so same as Amina, I'm conscious of time, so I am gonna be trying to be careful with my words, but obviously people do not want war. Most people that are actually using their weapons are using it because that's the only thing that they have, and that's the best option that was given to them. So again, I think that most people actually act on the best option that's given to them. So I think it's about, as Amina said, networking, creating the right bridges so that we can create new options, so that we can actually do it in a better way.
Right, right. Yeah, people can't take advantage of opportunities that they're either not aware of or that aren't available to them. And as we build new systems in the jewelry industry that are more equitable, that means that those opportunities need to be available to all, not just, yeah, the West or global North. Totally. Ola, do you want to speak to, yeah, where you started with your own efforts and where you see the future?
Sure. I think one of the questions I heard or saw earlier was what success looks like to me. And I would love to see lots and lots of youths in Nigeria get involved in the jewelry industry, from being designers to being involved in mining, to being able to own their own products and design and create and be able to export. So that's my idea of success, and that's where I'm trying to go with what I'm doing. From being able to show as an example that it's possible for someone to look like me and be able to achieve those things, to then creating work streams and pipelines that they can achieve similarly or more in a sustainable way. So for me, starting off with I think when Namwezi mentioned engagement rings, that lit up to me. So I remember I had no clue where to get gemstones in Nigeria. I just knew we had gemstones in Nigeria. I knew it was in parts of Jos, and I wasn't going to take a trip to Jos. So I started doing my research and found places locally that I could go to. Amina is probably familiar with the Jakonde market in Lagos. That was my first trip, checking out stones that would be laid out uncut. And then building up from there to learn about people like Choice Gems and Mina Stones. And I think Stuart Paul is also on the call. I've been utilizing organizations like Virtue Gems and Choice Stones. And you say, well, you're from Nigeria. Why are you not going directly to the source in terms of being on ground and being able to go to the mines yourself? But because I haven't established that yet, so I know I need to start from somewhere and partner with people and collaborate with people. So part of what I'm doing now is sourcing those gemstones and creating engagement rings and being able to tell the story. And I know there are questions around, where do I start from? I think even just highlighting the story about where that stone you put in a piece is from, understanding what is going on in that place, understanding the stories behind it, and building that into your collection or your piece. The other thing that I've been doing, which is very similar, is starting to research and understand better history in Nigeria, history in other parts of Africa, and the stories and the powerful characters that come from those places, and start to build that into collection that I create for the Nigerian market and for outside of Nigerian market. I think one of the collections I recently created that I got to exhibit at the JCK show is called the Heritage Collection. I'll drop it in here. You could take a look at it. And it speaks to really powerful characters and stories in Africa. One of my favorite is the Bini Ivory mask, which symbolizes strength from Bini part of Nigeria, and being able to flush that into a collection. I think bringing awareness to source countries is really important, and the major way you can do that is through the stories that you tell. The other thing that I've been trying to do is actually visit places and visit, I think now I plan like every year when I go to Nigeria, I visit another African country. So this last time I was in Johannesburg, I visited the one of the mines there, and starting to connect those different stories to and weaving that into my collections, but also identifying gaps in terms of solutions I can maybe immediately solve or be aware of, or collaborate with someone on. I think it's really important to make an effort to be on ground at some point, to see what people are going through. And
welcome to Deinté Fine Jewelry. My name is Ola.
Identify gaps that you can, that's okay. Identify gaps that you can either help create a solution to, or be part of the solution, collaborate with people, or have it in your back pocket that you can utilize in the future.
It's so wonderful hearing from the three of you. And Ola, you just brought us to also a really interesting overlap of experiences, which is where I think I want to take us next with some prompts from guest Christina Villegas, who's in the audience and gave us some prompts. And so here's kind of this overlap. So for the most part, everyone on these calls is on a journey to source materials. And this particular group, their journey of sourcing responsive materials includes having a definition for themselves of what responsible means, and having a definition for themselves of what sustainable means and what traceability means. And so I love that you shared that you're beginning, I think we might make assumptions like, oh, Ola, she knows Nigeria. If I buy stones from her, I'm going to be able to have a positive impact on miners. And you're like saying, hold on a second, I'm in many ways in a similar situation as you are, as a jeweler, having this experience. And yet, your business model was purposefully designed to start to have this positive impact from the outset, which is another thing that the majority of people that attend our living room sessions can also understand. So let's dig into this a little deeper, and I'll start with you, Ola, and then we'll see where the theme of the conversation makes the most sense to go to Namwezi or Amina next. But can you explain a little more about what tools are you currently using or looking for or trying out to help you on your due diligence process, so that you can say ultimately my stones or my gold or my silver, etc., are responsibly sourced? Like, what's available to you now and what are you looking for?
I'm looking for everything that can be sourced in Nigeria, partners that I can work with. Presently, like I mentioned, being able to source gemstones that I can use to create particular pieces or collections is important. As far as the gold is, somebody mentioned gold. I haven't identified places where I could source gold for, but what we've been doing is repurposing gold. So the gold that we have and the pieces that were created in the with the Wings of Empowerment collection and also the Heritage collection, gold that we've repurposed from jewelry that we sell at the store, and then working with goldsmiths that are local to create pieces. And that usually takes a whole lot more patience than normal. But it's something that I feel like needs to be done in terms of them understand the level of quality or that I'm looking for, but also as a learning process for them.
That's interesting that it's that for the gold, that so there is enough available jewelry that you can purchase secondhand, post-consumer, recycled to be then. So is it when you're doing the recycling, it is from jewelry?
Yes.
Rather than coins or investment, little ounce things or something.
It's from jewelry. One of the things that you would in Nigeria is that people purchase jewelry as an investment. So the way of buying a property as an investment, there are not a lot of people having 401ks or stock market or things like that. So the two major ways that people have or create investments for themselves is through properties and gold.
Mm-hmm.
And so when someone wants to have a wedding, what they go to for their daughter or for their child is to sell that gold. When they want to maybe purchase something, they rely on, because it's easy to carry around, it is easy to keep, especially women.
Thanks so much. So Namwezi, I'm gonna Lotanna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go to Namwezi next on this responsible sourcing thing, and then I'll come to you, because there's an interesting overlap here. So Namwezi, you with the jewelry project at Panzi Foundation have had sort of the responsible sourcing as a primary requirement. So, one of the things Christina Viegas mentioned in the notes is craft code. In other words, there are some standards that can be applied as you're choosing your materials. So how did you start to develop the due diligence process for the materials that the workshop is purchasing at Panzi Foundation? What did you look to for that?
So the first thing is that I personally got trained on those topics where I could. For example, I did the craft certification, but then for me as the project manager to actually provide that class to the trainers or the different women that we actually trained at the very beginning to become the traders of the project, that was a bit delicate for different reasons. So that's one thing I did not mention earlier. So at first we tried everything. We tried setting up the full chain ourselves, and we started working with women from mining communities on the trading question. So we trained them on ethical and formal trading of gold and gemstones, but we did not introduce them to craft because it was way too complicated. So that's also something, right? Is it something that you will be able to actually translate even? And the person that we actually picked for the trainings is someone who, because I did not grow up in the DRC, so my Swahili is not good enough for me to actually give those courses, even though the courses are in both French and Swahili. There are really specific words that you need to use for people to actually understand what you're talking about when you're talking about traceability, or even if you say it in French, then you will have to explain concepts. And so realistically, actually, when you talk about mining communities in the DRC, it's very complex to come with those programs. Even when, for example, in the DRC now we have the Congolese governments that actually started crafting their own certification systems for the gold sector, which is called ITOA. But ITOA, if you look for information on it, it's very hard to find digital information. And if you go to the different ministries, you will find it in French. Again, not the language that the mining communities are using. So, and especially because we speak so many different languages, local languages in the DRC. So it would need to be translated in Swahili, in Lingala, in Chiluba, because we have mines everywhere, right? And then in Kikongo as well. So I think, voilà, that makes it very complex. I think I'm kind of diverting from the question, but how we did it is that, yes, we tried with the courses. We saw that that wasn't really effective. And then we went back to working with partners. So now we work with other organizations that are specialized in due diligence, good governance, have been supporting the creation of mining cooperatives in the past, and have been supporting mining cooperatives such as Global Communities, for example, with Zahabu Safi. They've been working on this for years, and they pulled different experts to actually be able to create something that was going to bring, or I guess, bring some perspective, because that's also, I think, bring some perspective, sorry, to the mining communities in Eastern DRC. And so even that has been quite tricky. I don't want to continue because I'm feeling like I'm diverting a little. But I guess working with partners has been the best choice as for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you all are, you're sort of leveling the playing field a little bit with a reminder that we're all in a similar boat. I'm gonna sort of just do the highlights for a second, and then you're saying, look, the reality is such that we all start somewhere to get to know where these materials come from, and we have to have some guideposts. Because we want to support the best practices, we don't want to support the worst practices, and at the same time, we want to create some kind of a way to improve along the way. All of you are saying we are invested to improve and have a positive impact. So let's go to Amina now to respond to this, and then we're going to have probably a little bit of time to like, let's look at the what can we do together questions. So, but first I would love to hear from Amina about some of these systems and processes that you found useful that are leading to your success.
So I think I'm going to piggyback on what Ola and Namwezi have said with regards to just being able to, especially when Namwezi just mentioned about, getting the people on ground to actually understand some of these, should I say, systems. So we're quite familiar with the craft system and the OECD due diligence. So I will say with Mina Stones, we've kind of just taken what works and just created something that we have been able to use. So we've done the organization within the company where it's still a work in progress. So I think we've done a bit of work, and what I'll say we haven't really done is the reporting, which is something that we're working on. But in terms of sourcing gemstones and metals, I'll start with the metals. So with metals, we use also what people term as green gold now, but we also use mine gold from artisanal miners. And what we do there is we're very much involved in educating. So if we're working with any artisanal miner, it's a responsibility that we have to educate them and to ensure that they're working in doing the right thing. So when I say doing the right thing, sometimes doing the right thing is beyond them. So encourage as much as possible to do what they can do. I'll give you an example. So like I said, we source gold also from artisanal miners, We have a particular mine that we source from in Calabar. Ola, you know where Calabar is. So this is right now the one source that we're getting that is this is the one source that we're getting that is not using mercury in their processing, but they're using sorry, I forget the name, the gravity. So it's the separation. So they're strictly doing this, no chemicals involved. So this is there's a lot happening in this area in more recent years. I'll say even more so after COVID, where people are looking to eliminate all the mercury and cyanide in their processing of the gold. And I believe there's more pockets across the country where people are doing this. And I think the more the education, because there's a lot of education lacking in these areas, for them to understand that they're actually this is going to be better long term. There's some systems that actually you get more yield when you use the this sort of processes compared to using the chemicals. And then you also have the health issues that come from using some of these things in the gold. So I think it's the education and just getting them to understand. Of course, there's always, there are issues that come up, but issues that I believe can be overcome. There's the language barriers. There's like just all these complexities that people don't really foresee when we're doing these things. But I'm just speaking based off of our own experience at Mina Stones. So we do the gravity separation. We work with the miners that do the gravity separation. We also work with miners who are using mercury, but we encourage them not to use mercury. And we work with them. So we give them the option of this is what's available, this is possible. We also find that there are issues, so many issues come up where, okay, they can't really afford the systems that you're presenting to them. When you're talking about thousands of dollars, some of these people are farmers. They don't have access to this sort of funds. So it's very difficult, but they do need that money to send their child to school, to feed themselves for the day. So it's about coming together, I think, again, working together to find practical ways to actually do the work. But I don't believe in canceling people or saying because they're doing things the way we don't feel like they should be doing them, then we should just abandon them. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. So this is what I will say. But yes, I'm curious to hear where this is going, because this is also an area where I'm interested in. We're all learning, we're all growing. So I want to know more as well. So I think that's all I have to say about that.
I just wanted, Christina, real quick before you continue, to just make sure we highlight what Amina was just talking about as the reason that we always talk about engaging rather than hands-off, right? So engaging to improve. And that's just such a great example of, like, if you are just hands-off and you say, like, I don't want anything to do with that because the practices aren't perfect, you take away that opportunity for improvement because the support is needed in order to improve.
Thanks, Anna. It's a good point to highlight. So looking at the time, and I know there's eagerness among the audience, like which we've identified that there's an eagerness to support the kinds of initiatives that you three are involved in and that you've been educating us about. So, there are choices that jewelers in the West, in North America and in Europe in particular, can make to, that would help your overall vision, whether it's your project in particular or your project in particular. So let's do one more kind of sweep of the room and speak to that. What is it? Is there something very directly that would be helpful to you right now from the group, in addition to the broad ideas that you've been sharing? So, Amina, can we go to you?
If you don't mind repeating the last part of the question.
If there are particular things that you think would be helpful to you now that members of the audience could, of our community could offer.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure. So I mean, I'll just go straight to the point. You can support us by purchasing our products. I think we are obviously directly impacting lives of miners, artisans, individuals, who work in this supply chain in our community. And this is real work we're doing. So yes, support us by collaborating with us. The jewelers can reach out to us. We're on Instagram, Mina_Stones. We have our contact information out there. Reach out to us and see how you can work with us. I think that will be the most direct way to do it is come to us. And if you go to our page, you see we have so many, work a lot with sapphires now. We have all the colors, the teals, the yellows, the greens, and some blues, by request, but we have these. And then you can collaborate as well with us on some of the impactful projects that we do, where we try to address some of the challenges that the ASM miners that we work with have, and the artisans. So for example, we have partnered with a couple of like-minded individuals or organizations in the US, in the past to support ASM with tools and some resources for their work. So these are some of the areas where you can encourage, what we're trying to do, and, shorten that chain and give more value to where some of these resources are coming from.
Thank you. Shorten the chain. Namwezi, would you like to go, and then we'll come to Ola?
Yes. So on our side, as for now, we are really looking for a way to, at the moment, we are creating our jewelry cooperative, the Panzi Jewelry Cooperative, which would be separated from the Panzi Foundation, because we want to be able to create a model that's a bit more financially sustainable and not constantly depending on the classic donors. So with that specific model, what we want to do is increase our commercial partnerships and partnerships with other jewelers or retailers. Obviously, donations always help. So that's also me being straight to the point. Because yes, at the moment, we are seeking that capacity through, again, partnerships or donations.
Thank you. And that's all possible through the website, through the Panzi Foundation website.
Actually, we do have a specific web page for the jewelry project, so I'm going to put it in the chat.
Great. Excellent. And Ola, between your nonprofit and your vision for your jewelry business and the exploration that you're doing, what would support look like for you? What's the message you would like to?
I think it's been the last, I think, 2 years or a year has been really great, just being able to network with individuals like Susan and the BI JC organization and WJA. I'm starting to feel like I'm part of the jewelry industry in the US. I didn't feel that initially. And so being exposed to the potentials or the ideas and opportunities, they're things that I want to do with the youths in Nigeria, but wanting to make sure that it's sustainable from, youths being exposed to what it means to be a jewelry designer, but not necessarily having the opportunity to access gemstones, to access equipment that they could then use to create a livelihood for themselves. So those are the things I'm thinking about. I'm open to hear from people on how that could be executed or partner with people in that way. I know I and Amina have talked about connecting, and hopefully we get to do that with our busy lives shortly and see how we could work on some of those things. But on the flip side, my jury endeavor in the US, getting opportunities to continue to network with individuals and see how I can improve it. Like I mentioned, it's a journey for me. I'm new to this, like a lot of people are new to this, but what is really pushing me is being able to tell those stories and have people connect with it and let this be a learning journey for others that come in contact with my pieces or with me.
And can retailers, to all three of you, retailers that, might take a different approach, since many of the people on the call are designer makers themselves or designers, but what about sort of the traditional retailers around the world? Can they buy finished products from you for their store?
Yes,
Go ahead.
definitely. Yeah, that's definitely another way to support. As you see on the link that I shared of the collections, a percentage of the profit is going to go towards the nonprofit, but towards projects that I'm also doing. So that is definitely a way that they can support, is having pieces in their store and being able to tell those stories that come along with those pieces.
And Amina, how about you? Can traditional retailers buy from you?
Yeah, so they can. We depending on the quantities, but we have worked with one or two large supplies that we've done successfully. So it depends on the quantities. We have to understand what the needs are and then see if we can meet them. But we can, yes. And I forgot I had some sample stones here, so I'll just quickly show, like these are some of this. We have sapphires. I don't know, it's not really, it's kind of blurring out, but yeah, we have some sapphires. If you go again to our page, you can see, and then as Ola said, not just buying and having them, but also telling the stories, where they come from, and just about the culture or whatever you can say, because that not only gives some kind of should I say value to the source, but it also gives value to the work that the people are doing. So yeah.
Wonderful. I know folks are jumping off, but I wanted to give Namwezi sort of the final chance to answer this question, and then we'll wrap, because your situation is a little different. So is there a way?
Yes, for us, as I said earlier, now we are refocusing on just gemstones. So it would just be for finished gemstones. Yeah, so same thing. You can contact me, and I think it wouldn't be for large supplies, but we would definitely be able to answer demand to a certain extent.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank all three of you, and to all of our guests. We had a few folks apologetically sign off for other things, but everyone has been very appreciative of the information that you shared. You helped to dispel a few myths. You've helped to keep it real. You've given opportunities to support, and we look forward to continuing. I love running into the three of you at different events and continuing to support your work. So thank you very much for your time today, and to our audience.
Thank you, Christina.
Yes,
Thank you all.
Have a great day, guys. Good seeing you.
Yeah, thanks.
thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.